The golden hues of sunset spilled into the opulent penthouse, casting long shadows across the polished floors and drenching the space in a soft, melancholic glow. Liam Prescott stood motionless by the towering glass windows, his sharp gaze fixed on the city below. New York pulsed with life, cars honked, neon lights flickered, and distant laughter echoed through the streets, a stark contrast to the stillness tightening around his chest. Behind him, on the sleek mahogany desk, lay a stack of untouched divorce papers, each empty signature line seeming to mock him, a cruel testament to the unraveling of a life he had painstakingly built. His hands clenched at his sides. He had spent years conquering boardrooms, forging an empire with ruthless determination. Yet here he stood, powerless against the collapse of his marriage. The woman he had vowed to protect, the woman who had matched his ambition with her fire, was slipping through his fingers without an explanation. The rhythmic click of heels against marble snapped him from his thoughts. He turned sharply, his breath catching at the sight of Emma Hayes standing in the doorway. She was as breathtaking as ever, draped in a simple yet elegant black dress that clung to her slender frame. But there was something different now, a quiet distance in her eyes, a cold restraint in her posture that twisted something deep inside him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, Liam found his voice, steady but laced with something raw, something close to pleading. "Emma," he said, taking a step forward. "We need to talk. I can't let you go without knowing why." Emma's gaze flickered toward the divorce papers before quickly shifting away. When she spoke, her voice was soft but firm, devoid of warmth. "Can we just get this over with?" Liam's jaw tightened. He moved around the desk, closing the distance between them until he stood directly in front of her, his towering frame a silent testament to his resolve. Though his face remained composed, his eyes betrayed the unspoken pain gnawing at him. "Before you sign," he said, voice calm but unyielding, "have dinner with me." Emma frowned, startled by the request. "Dinner?" she echoed, as if the word itself was foreign. "Yes," Liam confirmed, holding her gaze. "Call it one last invitation. A way to end this properly. I think you owe me that much." She hesitated, her fingers tightening around the strap of her purse. She knew this was dangerous. Giving Liam even the smallest hope would only make this harder. But the way he looked at her, with a quiet sincerity that made her stomach knot, left her unable to refuse. "All right," she murmured at last. Liam's chosen restaurant sat nestled in a quiet corner of the city, a small, intimate place bathed in soft golden light. The walls, weathered with time, had witnessed years of whispered conversations and shared laughter. It had been their place once, a sanctuary where love had felt unshakable. He had brought her here hoping the familiarity would stir something within her, something that might pull her back to him. But as they sat across from each other at a secluded table, the weight of what had changed settled heavily between them. Emma, dressed in a delicate blue dress, was a ghost of the woman she once was. Her once brilliant smile was now faint, fleeting, as if she had forgotten how to wear it. She barely glanced at the menu, letting Liam order for her as she always had in the past. Yet when the food arrived, she barely touched it. Liam watched her closely, his sharp eyes missing nothing. The dishes she used to adore remained untouched, her appetite reduced to mere sips of water. More than once, she subtly pressed a hand to her stomach, a small, almost imperceptible gesture, but one that sent unease crawling up his spine. "Not hungry?" he asked, his voice deceptively light. Emma's lips curved into a weak smile. "I just haven't been eating much lately," she replied, avoiding his gaze. Liam nodded, but he didn't believe her. Throughout the meal, he steered the conversation toward the past, pulling up memories of their younger, more carefree days. And for fleeting moments, she softened, her eyes warmed, her laugh surfaced like an echo of who she used to be. But the moment he mentioned the future, her walls slammed back into place. She skillfully redirected the conversation to him, asking about his work, his charity projects, anything to keep the focus off herself. By the time dinner ended, Liam's unease had deepened. Something was wrong. And Emma, no matter how hard she tried, could not hide it from him. Instead of taking her home, he suggested a walk. The park they strolled into wasn't just any park. It was their park, the place where they had shared their first date, where they had once sat under the stars dreaming of forever. Now, the cobblestone path stretched before them, their shadows long beneath the dim glow of streetlights. The crisp evening air carried the scent of blooming flowers, but the silence between them was heavy, almost suffocating. Liam finally broke it. "Emma," he said, stopping in his tracks. His voice was firm, but there was an undercurrent of something deeper, something desperate. "Do you really expect me to believe the reason you gave me?" Emma stiffened, her hands clutching her purse as if bracing herself. "Liam, don't do this," she whispered. "Don't do what?" He shot back, turning to face her fully. His frustration, his anguish, bled into his words. "Pretend that we just grew apart? That everything we built just disappeared?" His voice cracked slightly, but he didn't care. "Tell me the truth, Emma." She shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "Please," she begged, her voice fragile. "Let me go." But Liam saw it now. The tremor in her hands, the exhaustion in her gaze, the way she had pulled away not out of indifference, but out of something far worse. His heart pounded as a terrifying realization clawed its way to the surface. "You're hiding something," he whispered. "Aren't you?" Emma squeezed her eyes shut, as if holding herself together by sheer will. And then, with a choked sob, the dam broke. "You want the truth?" Her voice trembled, raw and broken. She lifted her gaze to his, tears slipping freely down her cheeks. "I have stage 4 stomach cancer, Liam. I only have a few months left." The world around him shattered. The air was knocked from his lungs, his heart slamming against his ribs. He staggered back as though struck, his mind refusing to process the words. Emma took a shaky breath. "I didn't want you to see me like this. I didn't want you to suffer, so I thought if I left, you could move on. You could forget me." "Forget you?" Liam's voice was barely a whisper, but there was something unbreakable in it. He stepped forward, taking her trembling hands in his. His own eyes burned, but he refused to let go. "You really think I could ever forget you?" His grip tightened, his resolve hardening even as his heart ached. "You don't have to do this alone, Emma. Whatever happens, I'm here. We'll fight this together." Emma sobbed, shaking her head, but Liam didn't let her pull away. "Don't tell me what I have to do," he murmured, his voice unwavering. "I choose you, always." And in that moment, with the night stretching endlessly around them, Emma knew. No matter how much time she had left, she wouldn't face it alone. The golden hues of sunset poured into the luxurious penthouse, bathing the room in a soft, melancholic glow. Liam Prescott stood motionless by the massive glass windows, his gaze fixed on the sprawling city below. New York pulsed with life, a stark contrast to the stillness settling in his chest. Behind him, on the sleek, polished desk, lay a stack of untouched divorce papers. Each signature line seemed to mock him, a cruel reminder of how the life he had built with Emma was slipping through his fingers. His sharp, commanding eyes, so formidable in the boardroom, were now clouded with confusion and hurt. How could she leave? The woman he had loved, protected, and shared his dreams with, walking away without a reason? Emma Hayes had always been more than just his wife. She had been his partner in every sense, a brilliant journalist whose fire matched his ambition. Yet here she was, ready to sever their bond without an explanation. The faint sound of heels clicking against the marble floor broke the silence, pulling him from his thoughts. He turned, and there she was, standing in the doorway. Emma's expression was unreadable, her posture poised yet distant. Dressed in a simple yet elegant black dress, she radiated a beauty that struck him as bittersweet. Liam's heart clenched as she stepped closer, but he knew he couldn't let her go without understanding why. "Emma," he said, his voice steady yet carrying an unspoken plea. "We need to talk. I can't let you leave without knowing the truth." Emma walked further into the room, moving with a calmness that bordered on coldness. Her gaze flickered briefly to the divorce papers before quickly looking away. "Can we get this over with?" she asked softly, her voice devoid of emotion. Liam stared at her, unmoving. He didn't take a seat, instead rounding the desk to stand directly in front of her. Tall and steady, he looked down at her with quiet determination, though his eyes betrayed the hurt simmering beneath the surface. "Before you sign," he finally spoke, his voice calm yet resolute. "I want you to have dinner with me." Emma frowned, as if the word was foreign to her. "Dinner?" "Yes," Liam said, meeting her gaze. "Call it one last invitation, or just a meal to end things the right way. Either way, I think you owe me that." A sigh escaped her lips. Hesitation flickered across her face. She didn't want to prolong this, didn't want to give him more reasons to hold on. But something in his voice, in the way he looked at her, made her pause. "It's just dinner," Liam assured her, his tone unwavering. "Nothing more." A moment of silence stretched between them before she finally nodded. "All right, maybe," she told herself. This was what he needed to start letting go. But for Liam, this wasn't goodbye. Deep down, he saw it as a chance to uncover the truth she was trying so hard to hide. The small restaurant sat tucked away in a quiet corner of the city, its soft yellow lights casting a warm glow over weathered brick walls. It was the place they had frequented in the early days of their relationship, a haven of laughter and promises that once felt unbreakable. Liam had chosen it deliberately, hoping the familiarity would stir something in her, remind her of the love they had built. Yet as he watched her now, sitting quietly across from him, a distant expression on her face, the contrast between then and now struck him like a blow. Emma, dressed in a light blue dress, was a ghost of the woman he had known. Her smile was faint, a shadow of the vibrance she once carried. She stared at the menu for far too long but ordered nothing, letting Liam take charge instead. Throughout the meal, he noticed the peculiarities. She barely touched her food. The dishes she used to adore remained untouched, replaced only by small sips of water. Occasionally, she pressed a hand to her stomach, a subtle, almost imperceptible movement, but Liam caught it. "Not hungry?" he asked, his tone calm but probing. Emma forced a faint smile. "I just haven't been eating much lately." She averted her gaze, but Liam wasn't convinced. He steered the conversation towards their past, recalling their carefree days, but every time he mentioned the future, she deflected, turning the focus back to him. By the end of the meal, a deep unease settled in Liam's chest. She was hiding something. The small details she let slip were forming a picture, one he wasn't ready to face. After dinner, instead of driving her home, he suggested a walk. Not just anywhere, but in the park where they had their first date, a place brimming with memories. Under the dim glow of streetlights, their shadows stretched long across the cobblestone path. The cool evening breeze whispered around them, but the silence between them was heavy, almost suffocating. Liam walked slowly, stealing glances at Emma, searching for answers in every move she made. Finally, he broke the silence. "Emma, do you really think I'll believe the reason you gave me?" She stopped in her tracks, her hands instinctively clutching the strap of her purse. "Liam, don't make this harder than it has to be." "Harder?" His voice rose slightly, frustration seeping through. "You want me to believe we just grew apart? After everything?" His voice cracked. "Don't tell me that's the truth." Emma lowered her gaze, her fingers tightening around the purse. "Please, let this end." But Liam wouldn't let it go. "There's something you're not telling me." His voice softened, but the desperation remained. "You've changed, Emma. You've pulled away. And I need to know why." The weight of his words broke her. Her shoulders trembled, tears spilling down her cheeks. She tried to hold them back, but the secret had become too heavy to carry alone. "You want the truth?" she choked out, her voice shaking. "I have stage 4 stomach cancer." She took a shaky breath. "I only have a few months left." The words hit him like a knife to the chest. The world around him blurred. His mind raced with memories of her. The laughter, the quiet moments, the love that had been their foundation. All now tinged with the unbearable weight of her confession. Emma steadied herself, trying to meet his eyes. "I didn't want you to see me waste away. I didn't want you to suffer." She swallowed hard. I thought if I left, you could move on. Stop, Liam whispered, stepping closer. He took her hands in his, gripping them as though she might disappear if he let go. His eyes burned with pain, but also with determination. You think I'd let you go through this alone? That I could ever forget you? Emma looked up at him, silent tears streaming down her face. She didn't respond, but she didn't need to. A storm of emotions churned inside Liam. Anger that she had kept this from him, frustration that she thought he would simply let her go. But above all, his heart ached for the pain she had been carrying alone. You don't have to do this alone, he vowed, his voice trembling. Whatever happens, I'm here. Emma tried to smile, but her tears betrayed her. Liam, you don't have to. Don't tell me what I have to do, he interrupted, his gaze unwavering. From that night on, Liam made a silent promise to himself. If time was slipping away, he would make every second count. He would show her, through every moment, that love was not measured in years, but in how fiercely one chose to hold on, even when fate tried to pull them apart.